Michelle, when you guys were after uh, Fast and Furious 7, were you wondering, okay, how can we top this? And what is the thinking there when you know there's going to be another one? Do you wonder what we're going to do next?
I think after 7, my first thought was how and why move on. More than anything, because we lost one of our brothers, and there was a big question of like, can we, and if we do, why? And you know, you can have the studio influence and the money influence and all of that, but that, to a person like me doesn't really mean anything. Ultimately, it's the crowd. It's the audience and their craving and desire to have more of themselves on the screen, and that's what we do for them. So I felt like I had a responsibility, you know, to be involved. And then all of a sudden, everything comes together and magic happens. You know what I mean?
How does the audience seeing themselves reflected in the screen work? Explain that.
Well, I think it's the diversity. It's the diversity. It's having people from different cultures around the world, which this film does go to different cultures around the world. This is only 25% of the franchise's market, and when you look at that penetration, it comes with a responsibility. And a lot of people don't take on that responsibility. So, little black kids in Africa are looking at, a white superhero all the time. And they don't see movies of that scale, budget, in a non-sci-fi way with anybody of their own skin color. Same thing happens in places like South America, India, I could go on. China. But yeah.
Well, especially during troubled times like we're living right now, how important does that get?
I think it becomes incredibly important. I think a lot of people forget that sometimes, there are a lot of individuals in the world that really rely on their environment and the messages that they get from their environment to really adjust their confidence about their dreams on moving forward in the world. And, the more people that look like them, where they see in powerful positions or positions of freedom or positions of independence, then the more likely that individual is to fight tooth and nail to get to that position because he thinks it's more possible than he did before when everything was just white. You know what I mean? It's like if you see that everything is run by white people and every superhero is white, you kind of start to think, well, where's my place in the world? And this is true. It's true for children. It's true for adults. And it's true for the press. It's true for the media. It's true for commercials. It's true for, dictators. It's true for everything. It's messages, man. And all we do is, give people a ride. But at the end of the day, we're also giving a little bit of a message saying that, there are different possibilities outside of what you're living in now.
This franchise is known for its locations, and this time you guys go to Havana, to Cuba.
Yeah, and
How
that's
was
so
that?
cool. I love the people there. They're so awesome. It's almost like when you don't have a bunch of stuff to worry about, you become more human. I mean, the humanity in that place and the spirit of those people, the drive, it's like innovation, just like, curiosity and an open-heartedness to the people there. They're so warm. And I could see, I could see why for so many years people have been attracted to Cuba from all over the world, When we were there, Karl Lagerfeld was throwing his fashion show and he looked so happy. I never see Karl Lagerfeld really smile after a show. Like he was like really happy to be back in Cuba after so many years. And I thought that was special. And our production being there, watching all the people like really enjoy the helicopter flying low in the middle of Havana. I mean, it was the first time in 60 years that they've had a production, they've never had a production of that scale, but they've had anything even close to that, so it's cool.
how complicated was it for the studio to put this part of it together?
Oh my God, it was incredibly, complicated because it was in the middle of Obama opening up restrictions with Cuba. And so a lot of those restrictions weren't lifted when production had to get started. And in order to ship stuff down there, you had to start 6 months before. So production started 6 months before, even pre-production. So, like, these guys were there basically doing this for almost half a year. So, I'm very, very proud of the Fast and Furious production for pulling it off.
In terms of your character, she's gone from being good to being bad. And everybody seems to be going back and forth. Where are you at now? When we run into you in this movie, what's going on? Are you good or bad? What's going on?
Well, I mean, yeah, everything's relative, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's not about me being good or bad. It's that I had lost my memory. So, I was just with the wrong crowd at that time. And, now the identity's back, and, Dominic Toretto and Letty, they're on their honeymoon, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he goes rogue and ends up doing really, really bad things and stealing, weapons of mass destruction. And we're like, he's a terrorist now? What is this? What's going on? This isn't the Dom we know. So, yeah, it's a very stressful movie for Letty, but very fun for everybody else. There's lots of there's a good ride on this one. I like the dynamic between Statham and Dwayne. I really like what those two characters bring to the table. And Tyrese, you'll get a laugh with him. Him and Chris are always going at it. And and the submarine action in Iceland, I think people are really going to enjoy that.
How timely is this subject of terrorism?
Well, I mean, we never go heavy with anything because, you're talking about a family franchise. And, I'm sure that they just browsed on it because every other big action movie franchise has touched upon. I mean, almost every big action movie franchise has some sort of terrorism in it because, that's what it is. But I do think it's very relevant that there's hackers involved in this one. And I do think that is the future of terrorism. So, I mean, are we with a crystal ball? No, it's kind of like what's happening now. So, I just think we're just reflecting the times.
What I love about your character is that she is not your typical Hollywood woman. She. Can you comment on that? Do you feel blessed that you get to play this character?
Oh, believe me, the blessing came after the fights. I worked really hard to mold her into what she is, but I'm very grateful that you see her that way. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't see it on paper, you got to kind of fight for it. If you really believe in it and you think that it will help the entire thing succeed and be better, then you should fight for it. If you think that, when you're looking at a role and it's typical and it's demeaning or it's not reflecting who you are, then don't do it, But if you think that you can help the entire production, and help unite an entire team and bring something to the table of value, then do it. And that's what I did. So I'm kind of proud of all that work that I put in, those years of like, this kind of dialogue is not going to work, and I don't think this character would do that kind of thing. You gotta, I mean, ultimately, you got a bunch of guys, they probably just don't know what a girl would be like in that situation. Or they think that all girls in the world are, wearing hot string bikinis, and I don't know. But let me tell you, in the beginning stages of this franchise, like at the first one, it was the roughest. And after that, it became a lot easier.